schools. They're supposed to be places of safety, learning, and growth. But sometimes, they're hiding something far darker. These are 3 true stories that remind us, not all school halls are meant to be walked alone. In the early 1900s, there was a one-room schoolhouse in a forgotten corner of the countryside. The students, all local farm children. But as the harvest seasons passed, the school gained a reputation for something sinister. One day, a young boy named Henry stayed after school to clean the chalkboards. The teacher left him alone, locking the door behind her as usual. Henry never made it home that night. His mother frantically searched the next morning, only to find the schoolhouse empty, except for Henry's lunch pail, lying in the middle of the floor. There was no sign of struggle, no evidence he'd ever left. Years later, the schoolhouse was abandoned. Yet, locals still report seeing a small figure standing at the windows, staring out, waiting. And when they get too close, they hear the scratching of chalk coming from inside. Every high school has its secrets, but this one had an entire hallway, forgotten. In a bustling city school, the West Wing had been closed off for decades. No one knew why, except for the teachers, who never spoke of it. Rumor had it that a student went missing back in the 80s, last seen heading down that hallway. One late afternoon after detention, a sophomore named Jamie decided to test the rumor. She found the rusty gate unlocked and slipped inside. The air was cold, the walls covered in faded graffiti. As she walked further down the hall, she heard footsteps behind her. But when she turned, no one was there. Suddenly, the lights went out. In the dark, she felt a cold breath on the back of her neck. Jamie sprinted back to the gate, but it wouldn't budge. Desperate, she screamed for help. The next morning, her body was found. Her face frozen in terror, her hand clutching an old yearbook photo of the student who vanished. They say, if you listen closely, you can still hear Jamie's footsteps echoing in that forgotten hallway, just before she disappears. In a small town in the 1950s, a substitute teacher arrived at the local school. She was quiet, pale, and wore clothes that seemed outdated, even for that time. The children didn't question it. After all, she was strict and never smiled. But the longer she taught, the stranger things became. One day, a student, Sarah, noticed something unsettling. The substitute's reflection didn't match. When the teacher turned her back to the class, her reflection continued to write on the board. Sarah told her parents, but they didn't believe her. The next day, Sarah was missing. The substitute vanished as well, leaving behind only a chalkboard with one chilling sentence: "She's with me now." The school records show no trace of any substitute hired that week, and Sarah was never seen again. Schools are meant to shape the future, but sometimes they hold on to dark memories that refuse to fade. Be careful when walking those old hallways. You never know who or what might be walking with you. Like, comment, and share if you dare.